Parents used to throw Halloween parties of their own, real noisy ones in living rooms and basements. There'd be apple bobbing, donuts hanging from strings, and laughter spilling into the night. The record player spun Monster Mash while dads tried to outdo each other's costumes. It was wholesome chaos, kids running underfoot, adults dancing in costume. Everyone had fun and nobody needed a screen. Teenagers had their own kind of Halloween. Spook dances in school gyms with orange streamers, fruit punch, and a DJ spinning early rock and roll. Someone always wore a Dracula cape. Someone spiked the punch. And everyone danced under the dim light. It wasn't fancy, but it was electric. You'd walk home afterward under the cold stars, grinning, your ears still ringing with music. The candy comparisons were serious business. You'd meet your friends after trick-or-treating and start weighing pillowcases by hand. Mine's heavier. Yeah, but I got more chocolate. The bragging could last all night, but it was all in good fun. Everyone knew the real winner was the one who still had candy left a week later. That was the true mark of Halloween success. If you were lucky, you got a Ben Cooper mask, those stiff plastic ones with tiny eye holes and that thin elastic string that always snapped halfway through the night. The smell of new plastic hit you the second you opened the box. You'd wear it proudly, fogging it up with every breath, convinced that for one night you really were the monster on the cover. There was something magical about that smell of burning leaves on a crisp October evening. The air had that mix of smoke and cold that made you pull your jacket a little tighter. You'd grab a pillowcase, check your flashlight, and head into the night with your friends. Porch lights glowed like little beacons, and for a few hours the whole world belonged to kids again. Even the smallest towns had Halloween parades, kids in wagons, marching bands in wool uniforms, and floats built from hay bales and cardboard. The whole town turned out to watch. The air was crisp, the drums echoed down Main Street, and candy rained from passing trucks. It wasn't about perfection, it was about pride, and the feeling that everyone belonged to the same story. Every classroom window had those cardboard skeletons and witches taped up, curling at the corners from the sun. Teachers would hang black cats and paper pumpkins, and the smell of crayons and paste filled the room. The decorations were simple, but they made the whole school feel alive. You'd spend all day staring out at those smiling ghosts, waiting for the Halloween party to start. Some neighbors thought of everything. They'd hand out tiny paper cups of hot cider for parents waiting at the curb, the steam curling into the cool night air. You'd catch a whiff of apples and cinnamon as you ran past, too busy chasing candy to notice. It was a small kindness for tired grown-ups, and a smell that still brings the whole night rushing back. Costumes back then weren't something you bought. They were something you made. Moms and kids spent afternoons cutting holes in old sheets, gluing on cardboard, and covering everything in tin foil. A box became a robot. A broom handle became a magic staff. It wasn't about looking perfect. It was about using what you had. Somehow, that made every costume feel like your own invention. Walking under the streetlights, you could hear the crunch of leaves with every step. That sound that only autumn makes. Houses glowed faintly through the trees, and you'd follow the flicker of jack-o'-lanterns down the block. Somewhere a dog barked, somewhere a screen door slammed, but mostly it was quiet. Just you, your friends, and that endless rustle of leaves under your sneakers. At school, the gym turned into a Halloween wonderland, orange and black streamers hanging from basketball hoops, cardboard ghosts on the walls, and a metal tub filled with apples waiting for bobbing. You'd line up, laughing as someone dunked too deep, water splashing everywhere. The smell of wax candy and popcorn filled the air. It was simple, messy fun, the kind that never needed rules. Every kid chewed on wax lips, vampire fangs, or mustaches that left a strange taste behind. You'd bite down until the shape flattened, then toss it aside for another one. They were silly little things, half candy, half toy, but no Halloween felt complete without them. They came in those tiny cardboard boxes at the 5 and dime, sitting right beside the candy corn and licorice ropes. Candy corn was everywhere, those bright little triangles of orange, yellow, and white that showed up every October. They came in small cellophane bags, often with a little pumpkin logo printed on the front. You'd eat a few, swear you didn't like them, and somehow keep eating anyway. It wasn't really Halloween until you'd seen a bowl of candy corn on someone's coffee table. Trick-or-treating back then felt like adventure itself. No parents following behind, no cell phones, just a group of kids with flashlights and pillowcases racing from door to door. You'd ring a bell, shout, "Trick or treat," and move on before the candy even hit the bag. The night seemed endless, the streets familiar yet strange, and every porch light promised another handful of magic. Every porch had a real pumpkin carved by hand, flickering with a real candle inside. The lids would turn black with smoke, and the smell of warm pumpkin filled the air. Some faces were scary, some crooked, some downright funny. But every single one was made with care. You could tell which dads had helped. The ones with eyebrows, teeth, and perfect triangle eyes. There was always someone's mom who made caramel apples by hand, glossy, sticky, and wrapped in wax paper that clung tight. You'd peel it back and take that first bite, the caramel stretching in strings. Sometimes there were chopped peanuts stuck on, sometimes just smooth golden sugar. You could always tell the homemade ones. They tasted like fall itself, sweet and smoky all at once. Before plastic pumpkins came along, every kid used a paper grocery bag or an old pillowcase. The paper ones didn't last long. One drizzle, and you'd be clutching a soggy mess, candy rolling down the sidewalk. The smart kids brought spares, just in case. There was something about that crumpled brown bag, though. Simple, ordinary, and somehow perfect for a night like Halloween. We didn't have cell phones or glow sticks, just one flashlight for the group. 6 kids walking close together, its weak yellow beam bobbing ahead. You'd take turns holding it like it was a badge of honor, pointing it at trees or porches to look brave. The darkness around you didn't feel scary back then. It felt alive, full of mystery and excitement. Black and orange Tootsie Pops always showed up in your bag, though the flavors never quite matched the wrappers. You'd twist them open on the walk, trying to guess if it was chocolate, orange, or something in between. The stick stained your lips, your teeth stuck to the candy center, and you didn't care. It was part of the fun, that little Halloween mystery every year. Every October, teachers dimmed the lights, grabbed a flashlight, and read ghost stories right there in class. The beam cast wild shadows across the walls, and the smell of crayons and chalk dust filled the room. Someone always squealed at the good parts. You weren't really scared, just thrilled in that perfect, safe kind of way. It was the best kind of classroom magic. The neighborhood haunted house was always somebody's garage. Cardboard walls, stringy cobwebs, and a bowl of peeled grapes passed off as eyeballs. Cold spaghetti became brains, and everyone screamed anyway. There was nothing professional about it, just heart, imagination, and a few flashlights. You knew it wasn't real, but when you stepped inside, the laughter and fear blended into something unforgettable. The first time you saw a full-head rubber monster mask, it was almost too real. The glossy, sweaty face, the bulging eyes, it looked alive under the streetlight. Those masks were expensive, only worn by older kids who loved to scare. They'd lurk behind bushes or jump from driveways, and when they did, you swore your heart stopped. It was terrifying and unforgettable. Little wax soda bottles were Halloween gold. You'd bite the top off, drink the sugary liquid inside, and then chew the wax like gum until it lost all flavor. They came in bright colors, red, yellow, green, and rattled in your pocket all night. Nobody really liked them, but nobody threw them out either. They were part of Halloween, strange little relics in every bag. No costume ever kept out the cold. That October wind would sneak right through the thin fabric, sending shivers down your arms. Some kids wore jackets underneath, but that always ruined the look. You'd rather freeze than cover up your superhero cape or ghost sheet. That mix of cold air and candy-fueled excitement, that's what fall felt like in the 1960s. Popcorn balls were the crown jewel of homemade treats. Wrapped in wax paper, they stuck to your fingers and tasted like butter and sugar heaven. Every block had at least one neighbor who made them, handing them out warm from the kitchen. They didn't last long, gone before you got home. Store-bought candy was fine, but nothing beat a popcorn ball still soft inside. There was always that one neighbor who handed out pennies, apples, or little boxes of raisins instead of candy. Kids smiled politely, but you could see the disappointment written all over their faces. Those houses became known quickly. Skip number 12. But looking back, they meant well. In a night full of sugar and noise, they were just trying to be thoughtful. Every store downtown dressed up for the season. Cardboard Dracula, Frankenstein, and mummy cutouts leaned in window displays beside fall coats and toy trucks. The artwork looked straight out of Famous Monsters magazine. Dramatic, colorful, a little scary. Even grown-ups smiled walking by. Before inflatable decorations or LED lights, that simple paper and paint world made October feel like the most special month of the year. There was a certain hush that settled over the street as the night went on. just the hum of streetlights and the sound of distant laughter. Fog would roll through sometimes, catching the glow of porch bulbs and turning the block into a movie scene. You'd pull your candy bag close, listen to the quiet, and feel like you were part of something bigger. When It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown first aired, it became an instant classic. Families gathered in living rooms, lights dimmed, bowls of popcorn on laps. You knew the story, but it never mattered. Linus and that pumpkin patch felt like old friends. The animation flickered softly, and everyone laughed in the same spots. For one night, even parents stayed up to watch. Candy cigarettes were pure mischief. You'd pull one from the little red and white box, puff out the sugary dust, and grin like a movie star. No one thought twice about it. They tasted chalky, sweet, and faintly minty. But it wasn't about flavor. It was about pretending. Every kid wanted to look cool, even with a sugar stick hanging from their mouth. There was an unspoken neighborhood rule. Porch light on meant come on up. Porch light off meant move along. Nobody needed signs or safety apps. You just knew. The rhythm of the night came from those glowing lights, each one a tiny beacon calling kids forward. When the last few went dark, it felt like the curtain falling on Halloween itself. Moms were resourceful back then. When they ran out of candle holders, they'd stick candles in old coffee cans filled with sand. Those flickering lights lined porches and driveways, glowing steady against the wind. The cans got blackened with smoke, but nobody cared. They worked perfectly. You'd see those little flames dancing down the block, and it felt like the whole neighborhood was shining together. Every year, boys dressed as hobos or cowboys, and girls as witches, fairies, or princesses. Costumes came from closets and imagination, a worn hat, a broom, a borrowed scarf. Nobody needed movie characters or superheroes. It was about make-believe. And the funny thing is, even if you wore the same thing 3 years in a row, it still felt brand new every Halloween night. Before plastic pumpkins, there were papier-mâché jack-o'-lantern buckets, bright orange with wire handles and funny painted faces. They'd get soft from the rain and start to peel, but kids used them anyway. By the second or third Halloween, the paint was chipped and the grin looked lopsided. Still, you kept it. It was your Halloween bucket, and it carried years of candy and memories. Some houses went all out with sound effects, those scratchy old records of thunder, witches' laughs, and ghostly wails. You'd hear them long before you saw the porch. The speakers would crackle and echo across the street, making you walk a little slower. It wasn't about being scared. It was about the thrill of pretending to be. It worked every single time. Halloween in the 1960s had its own smell. Candle wax dripping inside jack-o'-lanterns, caramel cooling on wax paper, and the faint trace of wood smoke from someone burning leaves. The air felt sharper, cleaner. Every breath carried a dozen tiny memories at once. Laughter, candy, cold fingers, and flickering lights. You didn't realize it then, but you were breathing in a season that never really left you. Pumpkin pies cooling on windowsills filled the neighborhood with temptation. You'd catch that warm, spicy scent of cinnamon and nutmeg drifting out as you walked home from school, knowing it meant fall was in full swing. Moms baked from scratch back then. Real pumpkins, flaky crusts, and a little extra sugar on top. Sometimes they'd cut a slice just to test it. Nobody said no. Every school had a Halloween parade, and kids would march around the blacktop in their costumes while parents snapped photos with their Kodak cameras. The sound of clicking shutters mixed with laughter and rustling leaves. Cowboys, witches, and ghosts filed past the principal's office while teachers cheered. It wasn't fancy, but it felt big. The one day of the year when school actually celebrated fun. Before inflatable spiders and plastic tombstones, decorations were simple: carved pumpkins on the porch, a few corn stalks, and maybe a cardboard witch taped to the front door. Some families set out lanterns with real candles instead of electric lights. The glow they cast was soft and alive, flickering across every porch and sidewalk. It made the whole street feel warm, timeless, and welcoming. After trick-or-treating, you'd dump your haul across the living room rug like a miner spilling treasure. Candy slid everywhere: chocolate bars, gum, lollipops, the odd pack of crackers. You'd sort them into neat piles, keep, trade, and toss. Your parents would smile from the couch, pretending not to sneak a few pieces. That sweet chaos felt like the reward for a night of pure magic. October meant leaf piles, and every dad turned raking into an event. You'd help just long enough to earn a chance to dive in, burying yourself under mountains of gold and red. Then you'd lie in wait, perfectly still, until your friends came by, then leap out yelling, scattering leaves everywhere. Nobody minded the mess. That kind of laughter was worth the cleanup. Wearing your Halloween costume to the corner store was a thrill. The cashier would grin, maybe toss an extra piece of candy in your bag, and tell you how great you looked. You'd stand there in your mask and cape, feeling like a movie star. It was a small-town kind of fame. Just a few minutes, but it felt like the whole world noticed. After trick-or-treating, the older kids gathered under the street light or on the curb to tell ghost stories. Someone always had a flashlight under their chin, making their face look haunted. There were tales of shadows near the old house or glowing eyes in the woods. You half believed them, half laughed it off. The best part was not knowing, that delicious mix of fear and fun. The radio was your Halloween soundtrack. Top 40 hits from the Supremes or the Beatles, with DJs tossing in howls, thunderclaps, and spooky greetings between songs. You'd hear Monster Mash at least once an hour, usually introduced with a wolf howl. The static faded in and out as you walked, that eerie mix of pop and playfulness drifting through the cool October night. Every neighborhood had that one neighbor who could bake. Around Halloween, they'd hand out homemade fudge, thick, rich, and perfectly sweet. You'd unwrap it from wax paper, still soft and warm. It didn't last long. Store-bought candy filled your bag, but that fudge stood out. Even decades later, you could still taste it. That neighborly kind of kindness that doesn't come in a wrapper. The 5 and dime stores were treasure chests every October. Hanging near the register were paper skeletons and witches with moving limbs, fastened together with little brass brads. You'd pose them, hang them in your room, and by Thanksgiving, they'd be sun-faded and curled. But for those few weeks, they made your walls feel alive, like Halloween had crept right inside and decided to stay. Every kid knew the thrill of walking past a dark house and feeling watched. You'd swear you saw movement behind a curtain, a flicker, a shadow, maybe a face. You'd laugh it off but walk a little faster, clutching your candy bag tighter. It was probably nothing, but that was the magic of it. The world felt mysterious in a way that never felt unsafe. Parents didn't worry much back then. Their biggest concern was you eating too much candy before bed and getting a stomachache. You'd come home, sticky-fingered and wired, and your mom would sigh, "Save some for tomorrow." Nobody checked wrappers or counted pieces. The world felt safer somehow, and the only danger of Halloween night was a sugar high and staying up too late. The firehouse was always part of Halloween. Firefighters handed out safety pamphlets, "Watch your candles," and usually slipped a candy bar in too. The trucks gleamed under bright lights, and you could sometimes climb up to see inside. Parents loved the peace of mind. Kids loved the candy and sirens. It was small-town America at its best. Safe, friendly, and proud. Kids bragged about their homemade costumes. The cardboard robot covered in foil, the astronaut with a cereal box control panel, or the ghost made from an old sheet. Store-bought masks were fine, but they couldn't compete with creativity. You'd beam when someone asked, "Wait, you made that?" It wasn't just a costume, it was proof that imagination, not money, made the best Halloweens. There was always one older brother who took his role as chief scarer too seriously. He'd hide behind trees or crouch by the sidewalk, waiting for a perfect jump scare. The scream that followed would echo down the block, followed by laughter and a few candy wrappers thrown his way. Everyone knew it was coming, but somehow he got you every single year. Space fever was everywhere in the 60s. Kids wrapped themselves in aluminum foil, called themselves astronauts, and strutted down the street with cardboard helmets. You'd shout, "Blast off!" and pretend your pillowcase full of candy was a moon rock collection. NASA made everyone dream bigger. Even Halloween became cosmic. For one night, the sidewalks of small-town America turned into outer space. Brown paper grocery bags or pillowcases were the go-to candy haulers. You'd flip them inside out and write your name in big letters so nobody mixed them up. They started light, swinging in your hand, then grew heavier with each house. By the end of the night, the handles stretched, your arms ached, and you couldn't wait to dump it all on the living room floor. When the Firehouse opened its doors for Halloween, kids lined up around the block. Inside, volunteers had built a haunted maze from tarps and cardboard, lit only by red bulbs. Frankenstein jumped out, a ghost drifted by, and someone banged trash can lids for thunder. You'd scream, laugh, and walk out feeling brave. A free lollipop in one hand, your heart still racing. By the cash register at the 5 and dime, you'd always find little wax harmonicas, red lips, or pumpkins. Cheap, silly fun for a few pennies. They never tasted great, but you loved them anyway. You'd chew on a wax harmonica like a blues player, then toss it when the flavor was gone. Those tiny throwaway treats are what made Halloween feel alive everywhere you went. Every kitchen looked the same before sunset. Scraps of fabric, masking tape, scissors, and safety pins scattered across the table. Moms made last-minute fixes while kids fidgeted in excitement. Someone was missing part of their costume. Someone couldn't find their mask. It was noisy, chaotic, and wonderful. By the time you stepped out the door, you felt like the whole family had built your costume together. Carving pumpkins was a family event. You'd spread newspapers across the kitchen table, dig in with spoons and knives, and laugh at the mess. The smell of pumpkin guts filled the air. Dad always made perfect triangles. You tried for fangs or eyebrows. The seeds got saved for roasting later. And when the candle went in, that crooked face came alive, proud, glowing, and yours. Coming home from trick-or-treating, you'd drop your bag, flip on the TV, and watch the faint flicker of static while you sorted candy. The house was warm, the night quiet outside. You'd count your chocolate bars like treasure, trade with siblings, and try to stay awake just a little longer. That mix of sugar, TV glow, and tired laughter was pure childhood contentment. New masks had a smell you never forgot. That sharp rubber, mixed with candy and cold air, you'd hang it on a doorknob afterward, and for days it held the scent of Halloween night. The elastic stretched out, the paint rubbed thin, but you'd still keep it for next year. It wasn't just plastic. It was a reminder of every laugh, scare, and chase. Some houses went all in, candles flickering behind lace curtains, eerie organ music playing softly inside. The light would shift and move like something alive. You'd stand there for a second before knocking, half hoping they didn't answer, half hoping they did. When the door finally creaked open and a smiling face appeared, you'd laugh in relief and get twice the candy for being brave. Every neighborhood had its legends. The apple that vanished if left on a windowsill, or the ghost that appeared if you said her name in the mirror. Kids dared each other to test them, shrieking when something moved or creaked. Nobody really believed it, but for one night, anything felt possible. That's what made Halloween special. Imagination was real, and magic was near. Inside every cereal box, you hoped to find a plastic monster ring or rubber skeleton. They didn't glow yet, but you swore they moved when the lights went out. You'd wear one to school like a badge of honor, showing it off between classes. It was cheap plastic, but it made you feel rich in excitement, the kind of treasure only kids could see. Some porches had fishing lines stretched across them, with paper bats and ghosts dangling in the breeze. They'd sway and spin whenever the wind picked up, casting moving shadows on the house behind them. You could hear the faint creak of the string, the flap of the paper. It was simple, homemade magic, just scissors, tape, and imagination, and it worked better than anything store-bought. Before bed, you'd curl up with highlights or Jack and Jill magazine and read the spooky stories tucked in the back pages. The pictures were gentle but strange. Smiling ghosts, talking cats, friendly witches. It was just scary enough for a kid. You'd close the magazine, turn off the light, and stare at the ceiling, wondering what might be out there in the dark. Front yards on Halloween night had a special kind of glow. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered, leaves sparkled under the streetlights, and shadows danced across fences. The air smelled like wood smoke and candy, and every sound, a laugh, a rustle, a footstep, seemed part of something bigger. You didn't think of it as a holiday. It just felt like life itself, wrapped in a little bit of wonder. No matter where you went, there was always a plastic spider ring in your bag, bright orange or black, too big for your finger, but too cool to throw away. You'd wear it to school the next day, twisting it until it broke. Cheap little things, but somehow they made you feel like Halloween lasted a bit longer. One more day of pretend magic. Late at night, local TV stations ran horror shows, shock theater, creature features, or chiller. A host in a cape or tuxedo introduced black and white monster movies, cracking corny jokes between reels. You'd sneak out of bed, turn the volume low, and watch from the couch in the dark. It was equal parts silly and thrilling. Your secret connection to a bigger, spookier world. Nothing beat those mini chocolate bars. Milky Way, Baby Ruth, Hershey's, wrapped in shiny foil that crinkled just right. They felt fancy somehow, like grown-up candy made kid-sized. You'd unwrap them carefully, let the chocolate melt just a little before biting. Everyone had a favorite, and trades could get intense. In the end, you always had more than you needed, but never enough. The next morning, you'd sneak extra candy into your lunchbox, a few chocolates, maybe a Tootsie Roll, and hope your teacher didn't notice. The sugar buzz carried you through the day, your costume still crumpled on your bedroom floor. Halloween felt like it had slipped through your fingers overnight, but the taste of candy at lunch made it linger just a little longer. Waking up the day after Halloween was its own feeling. Tired legs, sticky fingers, and a half-empty bag of candy by your bed. The jack-o'-lanterns looked tired too, their candles melted down to nothing. You'd replay every moment from the night before, smiling to yourself. Childhood doesn't give you many perfect nights, but every Halloween in the 1960s came pretty close.